Rick, thank you so much for talking to me today about
Yes.
Wrath of the Triple Goddess. I'm very excited to talk about this.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So, I know Percy Jackson, obviously, this is not his comeback. He was in Heroes of Olympus, but how has it been for you just being squarely back with Percy for his senior year?
Yeah, I mean it is very different from Heroes of Olympus and even that into years and years ago. Because with the new Percy Jackson books, we are back in the old style first person narration in Percy's voice, seeing everything from his point of view. And it was a lot of fun actually to revisit that after so many years. It's like going back to a high school reunion and seeing all your old friends that you haven't caught up with, in years and years. And I really enjoyed it. I don't think I ever would have done it if it wasn't for the TV show, because the ideas about these books were generated as a way of trying to build interest in making the TV show. And even though I didn't end up needing them, once I had the ideas, I was like, well, I mean, we're doing the show. I'm back in Percy's head, remaking The Lightning Thief. Seems like a good time to kind of make these books. And a thank you for the fans that have been reading them for so many years. So I had a great time. It was a lot of fun being back in Percy's head. And the Triple Goddess, the second book of these new ones, I mean, I feel like I am now sort of back in the groove with Annabeth Grover and Percy, and I could just let them loose and chaos ensues as it should.
So, you mentioned kind of having to come back to it. Was it easy to sort of slip back into Percy's kind of first person voice, or was there sort of an adjustment in coming back?
It was surprisingly easy. I guess that's because Percy shares so many traits with me, and I also draw on my son's personality, which he was the basis for Percy all those many years ago when Lightning Thief started as a bedtime story for him. He's older than Percy is now, but still, it's a pretty easy voice to get back into. I kind of describe it like putting on, a comfortable old pair of jeans that you've had for years. It's like, yeah, I can do this.
So, when setting out to write Wrath of the Triple Goddess, what was one element you thought this absolutely needs to be in this book? And this could be as spoiler free as you want it to be.
Sure, I like the idea of Hecate, the goddess of magic, being at the center of the book. She's fascinating goddess, and we don't really get to see very much of her in Percy Jackson's world up until now. So the idea of seeing the goddess at home was something that was appealing to me. What does that look like? Where does the goddess of witchcraft live? And what is it like inside? So I had a lot of fun designing her mansion.
Hmm. I love the idea of her idea of loungewear at home. I'm like, she's just like
Yes.
me. Um, what would you say was the most unexpectedly tricky bit of this book in drafting and revising and
Mhm.
whatever?
Probably the trickiest thing was trying to figure out the backstories for Hecate's two pets, Hecuba and Gale. There is some mythology that I could draw on, but I had to fill in a lot of blanks too. So I had to think about that and figure out how I wanted to make those characters feel human, even though they're not human. And they can't tell us their stories because they don't have voices. So how do I present that to the readers? So that was a challenge, but hopefully it comes across.
I mean, I would say it does, but so on the flip side of that, was there something that came just surprisingly easy and easy breezy in the process?
I think all of the Annabeth Percy moments are pretty easy. Again, like all writers, I have to draw on personal experience, and Percy and Annabeth's relationship is very much based on my relationship with my wife. We got together when we were 16, like Percy and Annabeth did. And we've been together ever since. And it's a very, very foundational relationship for me. So I draw on that when I'm creating Percy and Annabeth. And that comes across pretty easily to me.
There's there's this undercurrent like in all of your work, I would say, of, it's adventure, it's fun, it's fantasy, it's whatever, but I love that a love story is always sort of a part of it. So is that something, I guess, I mean, obviously your love story with your wife, but is that something that's really important to you to kind of bring out on the page?
Uh, I mean, I think it's something that a lot of young people think about and are it's on their mind a lot. Like, what is my path going to be, and will romance be part of it? And if it is, how important will it be? What will that look like? So I don't want to, make it like the central focus,
Right.
but I do think it's something that, let me put it this way. If I'm not addressing it, I know the fans are going to be addressing it. They're always shipping this character and that character and who likes who. And, so it's going to come out. And so I at least want to acknowledge that that is part of life. And that is something that young people are going to be curious about.
So speaking of the fans, what has it been like watching this response to Percy
Hmm?
coming back in this new continuation of the
Right.
original series?
It's been great. I mean, I think, I was nervous, of course. I mean, it's been a long time. I didn't know, oh gosh, do I know how to do this anymore? Is this going to be well received? But everybody seems to really enjoy the books. I mean, the feedback I've gotten is how I feel about it. It's like it's revisiting old friends. And I think there's just a sense of joy, a sense of real nostalgia for those who have read it before. But the kids are still picking up these books for the first time, and they're going straight from book five of the original series right to Chalice of the Gods, and they're just like reading straight through, and there's no speed bumps at all. So that's great too.
Something that always interests me when it comes to books for younger readers,
Mhm.
because it's not that children cannot take on heavier themes, but I'm always interested to know as an author what your approach is. Because like I think of Hecuba's backstory in particular is
Yeah.
especially tragic. And what is your balance in making that age appropriate, but also not really pulling the punch?
Yeah, I come to the writing the same way I came to teaching when I was in the middle school, which I did for years. And that was a big part of my job. How do I tackle these big, heavy stories like Greek mythology and make them palatable, but also relevant for the kids I'm teaching? And I think kids glean a lot, even from things that are unsaid. They get it. They get when there's tension, when there's trauma, when there's even abuse, when there's, really dark stuff going on. Unfortunately, kids know about that. I mean, they've seen it in their lives or the lives of their friends. And so it's not something I want to gloss over and pretend everything's happy. On the other hand, I don't want to hit them over the head with it. So I'm not sure what the magic formula there is. It's just it becomes instinctive after a while when you're a teacher. You sort of learn where the boundaries are and what makes kids interested and engaged without making them feel uncomfortable. Um, so I'm not sure exactly what that looks like, but I kind of know it when I see it.
Right. You mentioned the Percy Jackson TV series earlier.
Mhm.
In revisiting it as a book, I know these things have such a long lead time that it probably was a
Sure.
lot closer together than we might see on this side of things. But um, did you find in writing these new books now that you were drawing inspiration from the way you were doing things with the show, or do the two just really stay in their own lane in your head?
Oh, they absolutely cross-pollinated. That's completely true. As I was sort of building out the season for The Lightning Thief and taking the Percy Jackson original story down to the building blocks again and trying to figure out, okay, how do we restructure it as a television season? I was sort of doing the same thing in my head with The Chalice of the Gods, the first new Percy book, and rediscovering Percy from the ground up. As we were writing the scripts for the second season, based on the Sea of Monsters, I was writing The Wrath of the Triple Goddess, the second new book of Percy. And again, drawing inspiration from what was going on in the Sea of Monsters, and vice versa. I also have gotten to the point now where our young actors on the TV show are so good and they are so great at embodying the characters that I now hear their voices when I'm writing in the voice of Percy or Annabeth and Grover. So they very, very much influence one another. And I think that's great. I think both both projects have invigorated each other, and they've certainly given me a lot of enthusiasm all over again for the projects.
I would say that definitely comes through. As I was reading Wrath of the Triple Goddess, I had the cast of the show kind of playing through my head
There you
as like a
go.
little movie. So I don't want to linger on it because this is about the book, but I do want to ask about season two and how that is
Sure.
going. So how I don't know what you can say, but how is season two going?
It's well underway. Production is underway. We were just on set last week, and it's great. I mean, the thing that always impresses me about being on set is how happy everybody is to be there. I mean, from the lighting guys to the caterers to the cast to the visiting series actors, everybody is just so delighted. Many of them are there because there's a kid in their life who read Percy Jackson and said, Dad or Mom, you have to be on this show. And so everybody has a real sense of family and and a sense that we're doing something that's important, that we're telling a story that matters for kids and of course adults too. But it's just a real feel good environment. And I don't know, I don't have anything to compare it to, but everybody who works on the show tells me how different and how magical and positive this experience is compared to some other things they've worked on. So that's nice to hear.
So this is venturing into sort of spoiler light territory, but I did
Mhm.
want to ask this. Let me see if I can phrase this in a way that doesn't give it all away. But Sally has a minor undercurrent of a subplot, if you will, in Wrath of the
Uh-huh.
Triple Goddess, where you find out that that she's maybe been a bit more involved than we previously knew. And I want to know how long you've had that idea in your head, because I have long been fascinated by Miss Sally Jackson. So,
Well, Sally is a great character. She is, I mean, she's an incredible mom, and she has a lot going on for her. And I don't know how much more we'll see. I think Sally deserves her own life in a way.
yeah.
But I do think it's always nice to spend time with her. And I do know that when I get to the third and final book in this new trilogy about Percy, definitely we'll see more of her and see more of what she's up to. So I guess that's the best way to answer.
So we can keep it so that people can. I don't want to take the joy of discovery away from anyone
Yeah,
else.
yeah, I get you.
So this is also not even remotely Percy related, but one of my friends found out I was speaking to you today, and she asked me to ask you whether she can ever expect more Magnus Chase.
Oh, I'm so glad that she enjoyed Magnus Chase. I would love to do that. I love Magnus. He's near and dear to my heart. I don't know. I mean, the problem is always time. I mean, I have so many ideas that I'll never be alive long enough to write them all. I would love to do more Magnus Chase. Right now, Percy's keeping me real busy. So I suspect if that were to happen, it would be a few years down the line. But please tell her thank you for reading them.
I absolutely will. So, I always like to ask this kind of as I wind down on it is
Mhm.
what is something you hope that readers will take away from Wrath of the Triple Goddess?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, I hope that they will have a fun and relaxing experience with old friends. There's a lot of stress in the world today, and we all need to kind of get away from that for a while for our mental health and just spend some me time, and that's positive. And I hope that the books will provide that for readers. Beyond that, I hope that it'll feel like a great adventure and inspire them to go out and read more about Greek mythology. We are really in the middle of this burgeoning Greek mythology-based renaissance across, all fields of writing. There's so much great stuff out there now that wasn't there maybe, I don't know, 20 years ago. And I hope people get to explore other works that are based on Greek myth. There's a lot to read.
I don't know if you can answer this, and it's fine if you can't, but is there some aspect of Greek mythology you haven't touched on yet that you would really, really like to?
It's interesting. I was just talking with my wife about that the other day, and we were talking about the fact that I often say that my favorite Greek myth is the Orpheus and Eurydice myth. And yet, I've never written about it. And we were talking about why that is. I mean, I've sort of obliquely referenced it, but not really. We see so many things that are based on it. Hades Town, the musical comes to mind, or the new Netflix series Chaos that's on right now with Jeff Goldblum. I mean, there's a lot of things that have been done with that series, with that story, but I have never done it. We're talking about why that is. I don't know. I think maybe I should tackle that at some point, but perhaps that story really unsettles me because it's so sad.
Mhm.
It's about, these two lovers who basically are given a chance at happiness again, and Orpheus messes it up, because he can't trust. And it just hits me right here. So maybe it's just too powerful for me to figure out a way into that without making it just like incredibly crushingly depressing.
I don't know. Have you seen Hades Town?
Yeah, yeah.
I've seen it a couple of times, and every time I'm like, this time though, he's not going to turn around this time.
Exactly. I mean,
Yeah.
you're always rooting for the guy, and every time, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
All right. Well, Rick, thank you so much for talking to me today, and
yeah, of
congratulations
course.
on Wrath of the Triple Goddess. I can't wait for everyone else to get the chance to dive in.
Now, thanks so much. Great talking with you.